All right, right now we're going to clear up the myths about a plant that a lot of people love to hate. We're talking about mountain cedar, aka juniper. And we're going to talk with Elizabeth McCready, who's an ecologist and a landscape designer. And welcome back to the show. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again, Tom.
Okay, now you are a champion of cedar, which is a hard thing in Austin, Texas, I must say. But tell me how you got interested in the plant, why you've taken it on, because you've written now several volumes about the plant.
When I first moved to Austin about, 20 years ago, working for different landscape architects, and I was working on this little parking lot design, and they said, no, you can't use the mountain cedar because it's not native. Because I spent all my summers in the hill country, and I just knew the mountain cedar. And then at the same time, I was working at the Wild Basin to be a trail guide, and they said, no, it is native. I'm like, well, what is it, native or not? And the guy, the director of the Wild Basin, sent me to Brother Daniel Lynch with St. Edward's University.
One of Austin's original plants people.
Absolutely. So he got the ball rolling. He gave me lots of information. He said, yes, it is native. Pollen evidence shows it's been here at least since the Ice Age.
Okay. So we know that, but there are a lot of other myths and things we could discount. But it is famous not just for being one of the dominant tree species of the Edwards Plateau, but for its pollen, which makes so many people miserable. Why is it that we're so susceptible to cedar pollen?
One of the main reasons is that the pollen of our mountain cedar is smaller than other junipers. So if you're living in the eastern United States, you're like not afflicted with eastern red cedar, and you come here, you could get afflicted with our cedar fever because the pollen is so much smaller.
Okay.
Also, it's more of an affliction of city people. People out in the countryside don't get as much because we have more air pollution.
So the city folks.
The city folks get it. And airborne allergies are definitely more, the more air pollution you have, the more you're going to be susceptible to them.
Okay.
But also, cedar fever happens, from December to February, which is right when we're celebrating.
Sure, yeah, right.
With sugar and more sugar.
And sugar? No, don't tell me sugar's bad.
Oh, yeah. So one thing you can definitely do is cut back on the amount of sugar, that wine, that apple pie,
Oh, no. You're hitting
Maybe
me
just
where
get one
it hurts.
slice instead of 2 slices. But that's definitely one thing you can do. If you want to stand out in society, you can wear a dust mask. Get one of those N95.
I've used those.
Yeah, those work pretty good. There's a lot of other treatments that can be done.
So tell me why sugar impacts. How does the consumption of sugar impact the allergic symptoms that come with the cedar?
It has a lot to do with suppressing your immune system.
It's interesting that the curiosity was spurred from this question of is it native, is it not? And it's, the earliest pioneers that we have written records of talk about the cedar break. So we know it was here, at least when the arrival of the Europeans have been here. And it plays a really vital role in our ecology here in Central Texas, right?
Yeah, it does. When they first arrived, and they're the ones that called it mountain cedar, so that's why I like to go with that. We had mostly old growth, and that is, and larger ones, that were 75 to 300 or more, older, and and now, it was also highly prized for building, telephone poles, telegraph poles, railroad ties, cedar posts. All were mostly came from the hill country, shipped out to Canada, California, Mexico. Everyone came and got the cedar from here because our cedar has a little bit more oil in it, which makes it more resistant to rot. And so it actually helped jumpstart the economy of the hill country.
The cedar choppers.
Yeah, well, they started off as cedar men, and then they eventually became cedar choppers. When it became the gold, like the new gold rush was, go to the hill country to chop down the trees to make all these posts and poles. But as a result, there was a massive wave of clear cutting, But at the same time, there was overstocking of the ranges since the trains were coming in with
Oh,
the
right,
absentee landowners, So we had massive amounts of soil degradation, erosion, and then we lost all these old growth breaks. So what we have today, it's like a complete 180 flip than what was, we had back then, And whenever the mountain cedars move into a grassland, they're doing that because the soil is degraded. It's because we take away natural processes.
Exactly. So the old cedar growths were ecologically friendly and allowed a lot of diversity, unlike the young cedar breaks, which are very dense and shade everything out.
They
right?
do, but what I've come to realize is that they're actually mega soil building machines. It's nature trying to fix what we did wrong, so we need to learn to work with that as opposed to constantly clearing them out and burning them.
Yeah, even though that you do have that kind of monoculture there, but if you go underneath a young cedar
As
break,
they start to age.
and you'll see all of that loose juniper kind of, almost like the needles if they were pine,
Yeah.
all over the ground, decomposing. And yes, I could see them being soil builders.
Yeah. Now, initially, that litter starts to get really matted and thick, and that also prevents
Right.
seeds from getting down to the soil. That's why you don't have a lot of understory. But plants with larger seeds, acorns, that's why you see live oaks starting to pop up through them.
Yeah.
In fact, that cedar thicket is allowing the area to become a woodland, and that protects all these new trees coming up. On hillsides, that's where we really need the woodlands.
So for the folks who, more and more people are moving into the hill country where this is the dominant plant, what's the appropriate thing to do when they move on? And I'm sure many of these people say the first thing I'm going to do is clear the cedar out. What is the appropriate path for living with and working with cedar?
Around your house, definitely tag and keep any old growth. Anything that has a trunk at least 12 inches is going to be at least 50 to 75 years old. Also, the old growth are reaching down deeper into like 10 feet to 15 feet down to make the air cooler. They stay greener during the summer, so they're more fire resistant. But is to keep clusters of trees. When you're talking about
Sure.
fire, instead of just singly having all these trees everywhere, keep them in clusters. The wildlife will thank you for that. It's really kind of like on a property by property basis, though, because if your land, if you're in the context of a more open, rolling, flatter area,
Right.
then that area would have been more prairie, more like motts and things like that. But if you're on the slope, I would keep as many trees as possible and focus on making your house more fire resistant.
Okay. And fire resistance is concerned not just with cedar plants, but many, many species
Yes.
are cause for concern when it comes to fire.
Yes.
So keeping that kind of buffer area around the house is really critically important.
Another thing just on fire is that, of course, the ladder fuels are what torch the trees, and we want to do everything possible to avoid that. And a lot of times the cedars will have these lower branches, so you want to prune those up.
Okay.
That's definitely a good thing to do.
So we should learn to live with the cedar and the juniper. And the old growth plants really are spectacularly beautiful. And
Oh, yeah,
lots
they
of
are.
endangered species or our birds really
Yes.
depend on them for their nesting material and other things.
Yeah.
So, well, Elizabeth, hopefully you haven't cured people's cedar fever here, but hopefully you've kind of turned around some of those negative attitudes, and we appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, it's Stephanie.